What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with another episode of Lions Latest as we go through the latest Detroit Lions news, and I think we got some juicy headlines to talk about today. So let's get it started.
Way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, and we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Yeah! He's the GOAT! Oh, there's nobody! Welcome, everybody, to the video. Glad you guys are here. I'm very excited for this episode because, we got some really interesting things to talk about. So, I just want to honestly just dive right into this. As you guys can see on the board, I put DC, TC, MB. DC stands for Dan Campbell, TC, Terrell Crosby, and MB, Mark Brunell. Sorry. I don't know why I did that, but I thought I had to explain it because it's like, oh, what does that mean? Yeah, I'm not sure why I did that. But anyways, let's just dive right into it. So we're going to start off with, I guess we're going to start off with number 2 first, and that's Terrell Crosby. So I'd say about a week ago, there were some rumors out there and some reports that the Lions could be looking to trade offensive tackle Terrell Crosby. Terrell Crosby was honestly basically our starter at tackle last season. I don't think that was the intention. I think the intention was when we signed Big V that he would probably be the starter, but Big V was a little in and out. He ended up being kind of the guard. So Terrell Crosby was basically the starting tackle for the Lions last season, and he wasn't great. It didn't look like, okay, yes, we're solidified here at the right tackle spot, which is why they drafted a guy like Penei Sewell. But at the same time, it was like, okay, he's solid. I don't know if this is our future yet. He's still young, though. He's improving. He's getting better year after year after year. So there were these reports out there and these rumors that the Lions would be considering a trade for Terrell Crosby, but they kind of died off. So I don't know if this is something the Lions are still considering or not, but they kind of did die off a little bit. Maybe the Lions were just kind of testing the waters like, hey, we got Penei Sewell. Is there a great offer out there? You know, because tackles are very valuable, especially at his age. How cheap his deal would be for this season because he's still on his rookie deal for this season. It's the last year of his rookie deal. So maybe they were just kind of testing the waters to see what they get, and if they got an offer that they felt like really kind of just blew them away, that they would take it. Because remember, they gave up a 4th-round pick for next season, moving up to get Derek Barnes. So they could have potentially looked to get a draft pick. The thing is, Brad Holmes is going to build through the draft, so he needs his draft picks anyways. And yes, you could have drafted a tackle next season, but the offensive line coach, Hank Fraley, talked a little bit about Terrell Crosby, and I think he had some really interesting and honestly really good things to say about Terrell Crosby. Now, of course, he's the offensive line coach. He's going to protect his guys. You know, he's not going to go out here and be like, yeah, we don't really need Crosby. He ain't going to start anyways. But I did think some of the stuff that he said was pretty important, that he is a great piece to the puzzle for us. And he's saying that, you know, outside, people are saying, you know, Sewell, Decker, these guys are going to be starters. But he's telling them, let's just go to work. You know, don't listen to any of that. Block all the noise out. Let's just go to work. We don't know who the starters are going to be. All of these guys are going to come in here and compete. Draft a guy in the top 10. I mean, he's the first player taken off the board at his spot, and it's not a quarterback. Usually the guy comes in and he starts the first season. Not always the case. Like, for example, we saw when Isaiah Simmons was drafted by the Cardinals, he didn't play a ton in his rookie season. It doesn't always happen, but usually, aside from the quarterback spot, when you're drafted in the top 10, you're usually going to start at that position early in your career. But the thing is, Terrell Crosby gives you a little flexibility. Crosby can really bring a lot to the table. I mean, the more and more I think about this whole situation of trading Terrell Crosby, the more I say that if you're going to trade him away, you better get a pretty nice deal in return. Like seriously, you better get a nice return. More and more I think about it, Terrell Crosby's value, I think, is extremely important for the Detroit Lions this offseason. I mean, there's multiple reasons for that. First off, let's start with Penei Sewell. He was the first pick at his position. He's expected to be the starter, and I think he will be the starter. He could go out there and ball. I think for him, what's so great is the situation he's going into. He's not going out there with scrubs on the offensive line. He's got Frank Ragnow. He probably have Big V to his left if he's at the right tackle position. I mean, you got Taylor Decker. I mean, you have guys that can play. So the offensive line is a strong offensive line. He's going to be in a good situation. So I think that's what's really going to help him. But there's still a lot of changes for him. I mean, it's still going to be tough for Penei Sewell. I don't know what he looked like because he opted out of 2020. It's not easy for really any rookie, but even at the offensive line spot specifically, because like the cornerback position, like the quarterback position, offensive line historically is really tough for rookies. It takes time for those guys to get really comfortable. Let me just give you some numbers to basically kind of explain what I mean here. Let's just use an easy baseline. Let's just use PFF overall grades. Pretty simple way to just basically do this. So when you look at the last 3 years, look at all the first round pick tackles. Compared to Terrell Crosby PFF grade last season, only 3 of the tackles drafted in the first round of the last 3 years had a higher grade. The good thing is with offensive linemen, like cornerbacks, is year 2, year 3, they take a huge jump. You know, historically, they get way better in year 2 and year 3. And for the Lions, it's set up that, yeah, Crosby, you know, if he's gone after that season, okay, those will be the years that he'll be really good. And I think that specifically fits Penei Sewell because I think his upside is just so high. Hopefully that's the same thing here with Penei Sewell. However, this guy could be changing positions. Like, this is not going to be just a cakewalk. He opted out last season. He's never played the right tackle spot. So if you're moving in the right tackle, they could play him at left tackle. It's going to be tough anyway. But if they move him the right tackle, that's a position that he's never played in his career. He's played guard and he's played left tackle. The guy has never played the right tackle spot. So he did workouts this offseason to prove that he could do that. That's not to say that he can't. I mean, he's talented enough to play a lot of different spots in this field with some development at those spots. Trade away a guy like Terrell Crosby, you have really no option but Penei Sewell starting out of position. And the thing is, for me, yes, he was a top 10 pick, and I believe that he will start, and you want him to start. But it's also like, hey, if he's not comfortable, I'm not just forcing him out there because I have to. Like, you don't want to be in that situation. You could go out there, ball at right tackle, great, you're set. But at the same time, even in that situation, Terrell Crosby at least adds depth to the team. He gives you a rotational piece that can come in and play all over the offensive line. The guy can play right tackle, left tackle, which makes him a swing tackle. And he could also line up at guard. I don't know about center, but he could play 4 of the 5 offensive line positions. And that's super important because offensive line is changing around all the time. Injuries are going to happen. We saw last year how many injuries the team had to deal with. Ragnow missed time. Big V missed time. Heck, Terrell Crosby missed time. Terrell Crosby has been improving ever since he's been in the league. And, you know, if you watch his 2020 film, he doesn't look like this is where we want to go with our future, but he is improving. And, you know, he came out of the draft, he was a 5th round pick, so a day 3 pick that was thought to be a guard at the next level, but he's, you know, improved every year, and he's been able to play high snaps at that tackle position, and he's played pretty well. I think for me, his hand placement, there's just things that could be cleaned up there. There's just lack of consistency from down to down, but he's a solid enough piece, and that versatility is so huge. For the price the Lions are paying this year, it just makes sense to have that depth. You could really hurt that depth with the loss of a guy like Terrell Crosby, which I just wouldn't want to do. Injuries are going to happen in the trenches. It's too physical down there. You're going to have injuries. You're going to have things come up. So players are going to be in and out. So a guy like Terrell Crosby, at the very least, gives you some depth if he's not starting. I don't believe he will be starting. You can trust him in the game. You can trust him on your offensive line to play solid, play a solid brand of football. So you can trust that part of Terrell Crosby. I didn't say, hey, here's our future. We don't need to grab tackle, because we did. That's why we drafted Penei Sewell. But at the same time, it's like, hey, we got a solid backup tackle. And that's important. Number one, you're trying to protect Goff, but it's also a prove-it year for Jared Goff. And draft a quarterback, they put their trust in Goff, and they're like, hey, let's see what you can do, right? And how do you do that? Well, you have to make sure that he's upright. I mean, for Jared Goff, there's been a couple important things. You need to go to offensive line, and you got to be able to run the ball. If you can't do those two things, Goff has shown that he's going to struggle. So those two things are going to be extremely important, especially when you didn't really address the receiver position. You got to make sure that you can run the football. And the offensive line is a huge part of that. As you mentioned before, I think that Big V is the X factor in this situation, because Big V can play the tackle spot. But still, I mean, it's up to some of those young guys that we don't necessarily know, like Logan Stenberg. Can they take over that guard role? Not super sold on some of the backup tackles aside from Crosby. I know that Big V can do it, and he can play a solid role there, actually specifically at the left tackle spot, because that's what he did at the past. But at the same time, with that in mind, then you have to have a guard that can be able to step up into those roles. And there's still some questions about guys like Logan Stenberg, who we haven't seen yet. Maybe that's answered this offseason, but we haven't seen yet. Big V needs to bounce back in a big way if he's going to start that right guard position. Like, there's still questions amongst this offensive line. Crosby brings a lot, and there's a couple of things that could happen here. Yes, you could trade him away. I think if you got a good deal, you could trade him away. There'll be, no problems with that if you got a good deal in return. But if it's like a late day 3 pick, I mean, I'm not doing that. I'm not trading him away. Yes, he only has 1 year left on his deal, but he brings that depth, and you are confident in him starting, even if he doesn't start this season. But it also gives you an option for Penei Sewell. It doesn't force him into the spot if he's not ready, because it is going to be tough. It is not easy, especially with all the craziness that went on the past year in college football. I didn't think he was the most polished offensive line coming out of the draft, and I'm still sticking with that. I mean, you can help him. We have a great offensive line coach. I believe in Hank Fraley, and he can make him look really good by the time the season starts. But just watching the Oregon film, I didn't think he was the most polished. Not as polished as some other guys, especially if he's changing a position, especially when you consider the offense that he played in. Say you don't trade him away. Let's say you keep him around. There's a couple of things that could happen. Let's say Penei Sewell starts the season. Okay, he hits free agency after the year. If he serves a good role as a backup, he can come in when you need him. He can play different spots. He hits free agency. If he signs a big enough deal, you could be looking at a comp pick regardless for him. Now, that wouldn't come in 2021. It'd come in 22. However, what's important to mention about this is comp picks aren't guaranteed. Comp picks aren't just, hey, he signed a big deal, we're getting a comp pick. No exact science to comp picks, which stinks, so you don't exactly know if you're going to get one, which is why we've went years without having comp picks, because if you replace who you lost, you're not going to get a comp pick in return. Terrell Crosby signs a pretty big deal, but we go get a tackle, try to replace it, we're not going to probably get a comp pick for him. It's just that we're expected to get comp picks for Golladay, Jamal Agnew, because we didn't replace these guys with any big deals at the receiver spot. We were just like, okay, we're going to go 1 year across the board. So we should get a comp pick for 3 receivers that we lost this offseason. If he doesn't get a big deal because he's in a backup role, the Lions could consider re-signing him, bringing him back. There's nothing wrong with that. This guy's still a young player. I mean, he's still on his rookie deal. Most of the time, less than half your picks are going to work out, and they're going to work out the next level. I mean, it's just really tough to draft players. So when you have a guy that's been improving year by year, he's been getting better year by year, he's been able to play different spots for you, it's nice to have that piece on the team. If I'm the Lions, my plan is to keep Terrell Crosby this year unless I get like a trade offer from like the Steelers or something that's like a really nice deal. But I'd keep him through the season, and we'll see what happens at free agency, assuming that he plays the backup role. Keep your depth, keep your offensive line strong, and if he gets a relatively big deal this offseason, then yeah, you don't need to pay that for a backup tackle. Someone else may be trying to bring him in as a starter because of his age. So, let it go, and maybe you get a comp pick if you don't replace it. If you don't replace it, maybe you could go in the draft and draft the tackle, like a day 3 pick, something like Terrell Crosby was. That's probably what my plan would be with Crosby, unless you got a good deal. I think Hank Fraley was right on it there. I love what he said, and I think he's exactly right. Next part of the news is about Matt Campbell. Yeah, we haven't heard that name in a while. Not since we were looking at coaches the Lions could hire. Matt Campbell, the coach for the Iowa State Cyclones. There's recently been a report that he turned down an 8-year contract offer from the Detroit Lions. Now, I'm not going to do a full breakdown and stuff like that on Matt Campbell. We did that. Like, if you want to see videos on that, we did that because DC's our coach, and I'm happy Dan Campbell's our coach. I'm so pumped for Dan Campbell, but there is reports out there that he turned down this offer. Some people said he should have accepted the offer, but the fact is the Lions offered, apparently, Matt Campbell an 8-year, basically $65 million deal. And this is something Carolina also did. When they got Matt Rule, they kind of did the same thing here. They offered like a big deal, and they were able to take him out of the college ranks. But he's basically very happy with where he is. He loves his situation, and he has recently signed an extension back in February through 2028 with Iowa State. So they got him locked up. They are very happy that they have Matt Campbell. And Matt Campbell's a good coach. The one thing that I like to see about this is the Lions, in my opinion at least, they looked at guys that checked important boxes for the Detroit Lions. It was the same boxes that I wanted them to check that I felt like Dan Campbell checked for the most part. They got someone that's proven, someone that's head coached before, and someone that's won some dang games. Matt Campbell, even though it was at the college level, he's won games, he's turned programs around, and he's coached before. I mean, this is not like, hey, my first time coaching, how's this going to go? Like, I've done it. It's a different level, it's a different age, so it may not work out. College is hit and miss, but at the same time, it's proven. And what he did at Toledo, what he did at Iowa State specifically, where he turned that around, I mean, he's built winning programs at both spots. And the fact that he's through 2028 with Iowa State shows you how much they're really committed to that guy. So I love the fact that they offered a guy like that, but I'm also super psyched that we have and stoked that we have Dan Campbell. The thing is, this stuff happens all the time. Now, some people aren't even buying this report as being true because I guess of the source that it came from, maybe not the most certified. So yeah, maybe this didn't even happen. Maybe the Detroit Lions never put this offer out there. I wouldn't be shocked if they did. Like I said, it's similar to the Matt Rule offer. I wouldn't be shocked if they did because I feel like this happens all the time. You offer coaches, sometimes they just decline and they do their own thing. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions did something like this, if they put that offer out there. It's weird that it came out today, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did it. Definitely shows that I think the Lions were looking at the right kind of guy. But I love what Dan Campbell said on this. And this was stuff that he was bringing up back when, during the hiring process. He's like, just make sure the Detroit Lions think that I'm Matt Campbell, and that way I can get in. The thing is with Dan Campbell that I love is that, you know what? I mean, maybe he didn't have the achievement list that a guy like Matt Campbell has at the college level, but Dan Campbell wanted this job. And that's one thing that, has to be appreciated. Like when the guy wants the job over anything else. He did have a lot of requirements to get this job. The fact that he's coached before, the fact that players have really liked him. I mean, he's been a part of a lot of good staffs. He has the requirements to be the Lions head coach. And these were kind of my requirements, what I was looking for. Like, so much higher on having coaching experience rather than a coordinator. I didn't care if he was a coordinator. Okay, cool, you're a coordinator, you're great, that awesome, that's a different job. Can you coach? Show me that part on your resume. And I think Dan Campbell showed us that. And it's like, hey, we can hire coordinators. We can go get coordinators. If you're the right guy that people want to go to war with, be a leader for a team, not only for players, but also for the staff, you're going to get the staff. And we know Dan Campbell got the staff. Like, we can get the coordinators, but I need someone that can lead a team, okay? I don't need the smartest offense coordinator in the world. I just need someone that can lead my team, and we'll find the coordinators, all right? Then you got to be able to bring in staff, and we know Dan Campbell smacked that out of the park, it seemed. Really don't want to get too far back into this because we did this during the offseason, but if you guys want to go check out some of the old videos, you can. We had one where I wrote a letter to Sheila Ford Hamp on who I wanted her to hire. Something just the kind type of coach I wanted her to hire. And I think that's what Dan Campbell was. And it's like, man, the evidence is there. Guys with coaching experience, those guys have success for Detroit. I mean, look at the history. Like, the numbers are there. What else do you want? And not only that, like, guys that have played before, those guys have had some, good history with the Detroit Lions. Not all of them. Dan Campbell checks both of those boxes. And heck, some within the organization. Now, he's not within the organization, but he was here at one point. It was the fact that he had head coach experience, and I was just like, yes, I'm down with it. I don't care. That's just what I want. The way that it went was good, too. It wasn't like I was a head coach and everybody hated me. They wanted me out. They were like, chanting his name, bring this guy back. I mean, that's how it went. Like, the person that owns the business, they're not doing everything. They're not doing all the work. They're the people that hire the people to do the work. They hire the people that are the best at their job. And I think it goes back to Dan Campbell's comments about a true alpha. Like, a true alpha knows that, like, I'm not going to know everything. I'm not going to be the smartest guy on offense, defense, special teams where I'm like, I'm going to call all the plays. I just got to get those guys with me. I got to be able to hire the right guys because I'm not going to be in charge of everything. Even if I was a coordinator, I'm not in charge of everything. So I got to be able to hire the right guys. And I think that is what Dan Campbell brought with his personality, how many guys came in. He's joking about it, but you love his personality. This is the kind of personality that we really wanted in Detroit after what we just had. So I'm super happy that Dan Campbell is here. But I also like the fact that, I think the Lions were looking in the right direction for head coaches, and I think they found the right guy. I hope they found the right guy here in Dan Campbell. But I think it really speaks to the motivation that this could also give DC. Hearing this come out there, like, this is motivation. And I know that Dan Campbell's the type of guy to write this stuff down and be like, okay, let's get it. Right? You offer Matt Campbell for real? Like, you actually did that, Lions? Okay. And he may have already known that. Maybe that's why he was saying that. He was like, yeah, I know this. But he also realized, like, Matt Campbell's a hot commodity. Like, what he's been able to accomplish in college. But at the same time, I know what I can do. I know what I'm about. And I just want a chance. I just want a chance to do this and try to turn this thing around. And now he's here, and I'm so pumped that he is here. Obviously, on the field, he's got to accomplish things, but I'm talking in terms of staff, the kind of guys that have wanted to come here. And people have said it, like, as soon as he got hired, like, people are going to want to come coach with this guy. People are taking downgraded jobs. People are leaving division rivals to come here and work because they're just that pumped for Dan Campbell. So we'll see if it works on the field, but I can say that I'm excited that we have DC, but I also do like the fact the Lions were looking that direction for coaches, and just the fact that they were taking consideration guys that were proven, that had experience doing it. We needed someone like that. Talk a little bit about Mark Brunell. Let's get a little optimism your way today. And this is Mark Brunell comparing the Detroit Lions 1996 Jaguars team to the Detroit Lions of this season, saying that there's a lot of similar vibes, basically, that the Lions are giving off. He said very few people gave us a chance to do anything. Some people said 500, 5 or 6 wins, and we went out there, we started 4-7, and we turned things around. So back in 1996, Mark Brunell is the Lions quarterback coach now. He's working with Jared Goff. And Mark Brunell was the quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And back in 1996, this was a team that was coming off a 4-12 season. They had Tom Coughlin as their head coach. They start 4-7 on the season. No one believed in them, coming off a rough season. And then they win their last 5 games of the season. They finished 9-7 that year. They go to the playoffs. They finish second in their division. They're the 5th seed in the NFL playoffs. They roll through their first 2 games, winning 30-27 each. They get to the AFC Championship game before they lose to the Patriots. And after that, the story just went on. 11-5, 11-5, 14-2 before they went 7-9, and then no longer Mark Brunell was there. Pretty big background to this story, but this is something that I read. It was basically Tom Coughlin to the first 11 games when they were 4-7. Like, he was not a guy that players loved. He was not a very much of a player's coach. I guess he had a very thick playbook that made players feel like just kind of dumb because it was so deep, and players didn't really enjoy it. It's changed for Tom Coughlin. He opened up. They said the walls fell down, and he started to understand players better, which I think is Dan Campbell's biggest strength, and he thinks is his biggest strength. He started to understand players better, and they went on this run, right? The environment got better. He was the guy that was like, okay, I'm going to cut your best players. I'm going to cut your leaders. Things were not good there, but then things changed. It almost kind of sounds like what just kind of went down. In a way, does it not? In a way, for Tom Coughlin, it was a change for him, but for the Lions, it going from 2 different coaches. A guy that was kind of liked on that side, the deep playbook, things are super detailed. It wasn't much of a player's coach, it seemed. However, now the walls come down. Players are feel it, the environment's much different, and that kind of feels like this hiring, the walls are coming down, and it's like, okay, this is a completely different different feel around this team. And I think that's maybe why Mark Brunell is getting this kind of feel for this Lions team right now, that they believe. But you could just see, I mean, it was like that. It was that turnaround where people did not believe in him. And all of a sudden they turned it around, and it lasted. For the next 3 seasons, they became one of the powerhouses in the NFL. And he feels like the Lions are giving off some of the similar vibes here. So this is a good thing to hear, right? You like to hear this. He's inside the building. He's got the same feelings. And we've had a lot of guys like this, a lot of former players. And we know the competition levels have been great. Guys are going at it in practice. I mean, this is the environment that you want. It's a competition environment. And he says this: the Lions believe in themselves right now, same way the Jaguars did. So he's getting the same feeling that this Lions team believes in themselves the same way that the Jaguars did when I was part of that team as their quarterback. You know, I think we've heard it from many guys like Dan Campbell, but also Jared Goff. Like, things change quickly in the NFL. Like, we can do this. And, you know, he's talking about weathering the storm, flipping things quickly. Like, that's the thing. NFL is not like one of those sports where it's like it takes 17 years to turn your thing around. Like, no, it can go from here to there in one season, and you can just flip the switch the same way the Jacksonville Jaguars did. 1 week couldn't flip a season on top of the set. I think about Tampa Bay last season. This team, we're talking like, man, are they going to make the playoffs? And all of a sudden, boom, they just get on a streak. They roll through us, and it's like we're winning the Super Bowl. It's like, where did that come from? It's just, 1 week can really just flip the script. I think this is a perfect example of how fast things can actually change. We're not even talking from off-season turnover and players. We're talking during the season. Tom Coughlin, not the best environment. People aren't loving it, you know, and you're not getting the best out of players. It's the same guys. But all of a sudden, his personality changes. Things are changing in the locker room. The environment's better. And these same guys that were 4-7, all of a sudden win, 7 straight games? I mean, they finished the season with 7 straight wins until they finally lose in the AFC Championship. Like, that's nuts. And that's during the season. That's how fast things can really change. This is a group that believe that they can. Regardless of what's being said outside the Detroit Lions, they believe that they can. So you do love to hear that. Obviously, we would love to see that kind of turnaround from the Lions. But, you know, I think you can tell with the eye test when a team is kind of trending the right direction. Like, you can feel it. You can feel the energy. You can feel the way a team is trending, I think. You know, even if they're losing, you can kind of feel that players are confident. Players are playing with confidence. Players are fighting every play. The competition is there. There's improvements. You can feel it, and you can see it with the eye test. And I hope we see that this season, really. I mean, I don't have huge high expectations, but I do think the Lions can be a good team. Of course, I'm a little biased. I ain't gonna lie, but I do believe in this team a little bit. And it kind of goes back to the Crosby thing. We got to be able to run the ball. Like, there's things that have to be done, and Dan Campbell needs to prove that, you know, he can do it. But I know that players like him. I know they liked him in the past, and I'm sold on Dan Campbell again after what he said. Like, hey, I know how to get the best out of players, and I know that everybody responds differently. You know, different coaching. Some guys, you need to smack him in the butt and be like, hey, let's go. And other guys, you got to put your arm around him. Like that kind of thing. I was like, okay, DC knows what he's talking about. Like this, he knows what he's talking about. And I think we've seen is a lot of those guys that can get the best out of players are what works. I mean, there's so many talented guys in the league where you see one guy, yes, scheme has to play in this too, but one guy's here, he's struggling, he goes somewhere else, and like, oh, he's balling out. But the thing is, like, you got to be able to get that out of the player. Schematically, smartly on the field, put the right position, and then you got to put the confidence and instill that into them. They can be in the right spot, but if they don't believe in themselves, if they're not confident, if they're worried on the field, it ain't going to work anyways. I mean, they're not going to go out there and make plays. They're thinking too much. If you're thinking about the game, if you're not just playing and having fun, but once you do that, and I think that's what the competition drills are for. Guys going out there just competing, having fun, just letting it hang loose. And this is when things turn around. You know, you're having fun. You're not necessarily thinking about what do I have to be, where do I have to be. I just want to play the game of football that I know how to play, that I was drafted for, that I played for years. And now I'm confident, and that's when things can turn around quickly. I do like that little hype up there by Mark Brunell that he has the same kind of feeling from the Lions that they did back in 1996. And I would love to go 9-7, and well, I guess this season would be like 10-7 or 9-8. Regardless, if we can make it to the NFC Championship, I would freak this season. Oh my gosh, you guys think I'm hype after a regular... Yeah, I'll be hype after a preseason win. Give me a playoff win. I will jump through my window. Like, I'm not even playing. But anyways, I just thought I would leave it there. So we had some interesting headlines today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you, Proper, for watching. Go Lions, and I'm out.